All right, everyone, we'll get started because I think we already are a little bit late and it looks like we have pretty much everyone in here. So let me do a quick intro if you don't know me, just because I see some different people in the chat this month. My name is Justine. Today I'm marketing at UserGems, but my name is Justine. I work in product marketing here at UserGems, and I'm formerly our second CSM. So when I first started at UserGems a few years ago, I had started to build out the CSM team. And then since then, kind of transitioned into a product role really naturally, just based on how I saw and helped influence our product grow and evolve. So now what I do with our customers monthly is I host a session just based on like what has been new and changing, what are a lot of common questions coming up for our CS team, what is really cool features that we're launching, and how can we encourage you all to use them. So today we're going to be talking about automations. And in terms of an agenda, I'll first just give a little quick background on what we launched last month, which is our analytics feature. If you came to our Dig Deeper session in January, Jordan Kilmer, who is our customer success manager, walked through the analytics dashboard, so I'll give a quick plug about that. I'll also give you a little bit of a teaser of what we are launching in March, and how you can all get involved. And then our lesson today is about how to automate UserGems. And in terms of automations, what we'll do here is talk about email notifications, Slack notifications, and how to automate into SalesLoft and outreach sequence or cadences. And you can do that all directly from our new dashboards. So I'll walk through like how to set that up, how to create these groups of UserGems that you want to set an automation around, and then how to set up the automations. And then if you have any questions, throw them in the Q&A and we can answer them as they come through. So last month we launched our advanced analytics dashboard. This is available within your UserGems dashboard. So you might utilize our Salesforce dashboards in terms of like reps or just general reporting. This gets a little bit more granular, so you can see by groupings of what types of gems. So you can break it up by persona matching, by seniority, by where they came from, and you can see different personas broken down with performance and then over a period of time. So if you've been with UserGems for a little bit now, you'll know that our old dashboards really only showed like an aggregate number of performance across all time. Now we can really get granular in terms of what was the performance this last month, what was the performance on this team member, or like a team overall. So go check that out. Under analytics in your dashboard. You can also talk to your CSM if you want a more detailed walkthrough. You can also check out our Dig Deeper recording from January on YouTube, where Jordan walks through how to look through this and maybe some considerations on how to point you in the right direction. Yes, we will be sharing the recording after this, and it will also be on YouTube. So if you ever want to share that around, we house them all on our YouTube channel, and also you'll get an email after this. So in March's Dig Deeper, we're going to be talking about how we at UserGems utilize the signal new hire and promotions. And so this is a part of our account tracking product currently. But you can also really target in on this specific job change. So this is job changers who didn't use your product before, but have now joined a new company. And we have been using this now for the last 2 years since we launched this part of our product. And next month, we're going to be talking through how we used this signal, just new hires and promotions, to produce 14% of our revenue and 8% of our pipeline last year. So we'll talk about like why new enrolled buyers are really great signals to go after. This is, again, not a new play. It's just a way to operationalize this play in a more strategic way and more scalable for your teams. And we'll talk through how we use this to actually rank our accounts that we go after for our ABX programs. All right, so our lesson today is about fully, and I have an asterisk here because if you don't want to automate this end to end, we do offer like semi-automation. So maybe you want to put it in a sequence, but you want the sequence to be a bit manual, or maybe you want to notify the rep, but you don't want to put it in a sequence. You still want the sales reps to kind of go through that. We offer all of that. We do recommend at least automation into sequences. We just see that increases the adoption of UserGems across a whole, rather than doing some type of a notification and then having the rep place them into the sequence. However, we will show you the options for all of them. So if you don't want to fully automate it, that's totally fine. But we will show you how to do it if you so choose. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of go through what we're going to show today, and then I'm going to explain why. So we're going to go through how to use existing and custom filters, and I will explain what a filter is after this slide, or potentially the slide after that, and then how to create Slack and email notifications, and then how to enroll gems directly into a sales loft cadence or an outreach sequence. Currently, those are the two sales engagement platforms that we can support through this workflow. However, if you do use something like Groove or Gong Engage or some other different type of sequencing tool, you can still utilize the Slack and email notifications, and we can work with you on setting up automations into these other tools. They just aren't going to be able to be done through this platform, but you can do them in different flows, and we can help you. All right, so there's two words here that sound kind of buzzwordy to UserGems, but they're all over the job changes in the automations dashboard, so I want to go over them. So the two words are filter and automation. And every automation you can think of is like send to Slack, send to a cadence, send someone an email. Like that would be an automation, so something that's happening. But for every automation, there needs to be a filter associated, because there needs to be some type of a group of people that are going to be entering this filter to then get enrolled in this automation. So think of these two things as together. There is no automation without a filter. So some examples of this could be the filter is your champion joins a key account. And then the automation is I'm going to add that to a sequence, and I'm also going to send a Slack notification. Whereas another filter could be a champion joins an open op account. And with this one, you might just want to send a Slack notification to the AE. So filter is champion joining an open op. Automation is sending a Slack notification to an AE. So you're going to want to think through like, what is the automations that I want to happen, and like, who do I want these to occur for? So you might want to think backwards. But we'll show you some of our pre-built ones, and then that would probably start to spark some type of different use cases of what might work best in your org. So quick PSA before I start showing how this works. There is required pre-work to make this automations work best. And if you've been here for a while, you'll start to notice that this required pre-work is not going away. So as we start to build onto our product, these steps in your account need to be fulfilled for a lot of our future product and features to work. This is one of those things. So the first being uploading a report of target accounts, because we want to make sure that we're differentiating between a user gem that goes to an account that you really care about and a user gem that goes to an account that you like kind of care about, and then a user gem that goes to an account that you actually can't sell into at all. So we want to make sure that we can differentiate between those three groups of people, because those are going to warrant a different automation. Whereas if they're going to an account that's really, really important to you, you want to make sure they're added to a sequence, someone's getting notified, someone's following up on that, but you don't want them to get all of this noise for all of the accounts. So we want to make sure that you're uploading a report of your target accounts before we start setting up these features. Defining your buyer persona is kind of the same thought process here. So we want to make sure that someone who's matching your buyer persona is getting all of the bells and whistles. They're getting the best sequence. They're getting the best attention from your reps. And someone who doesn't match your buyer persona, like maybe they go into a different sequence, or maybe they get worked a little bit less granularly, than someone who does match your buyer persona. So those two things are really important to start differentiating between people in your filters. Defining your ICP is something that we also recommend. So think through if you don't have like key accounts or target accounts. If someone joins an ICP account, like that could be really important to you. Or you just want to make sure that people joining your ICP account, even if it's not a target account, are worked differently than someone who's not. This last one, define DRIs. So DRIs here means directly responsible individual. And this just means like, who is actioning this job change lead or contact? Like, who is the person that is getting the Slack notification? Who is the person that is going to be sequencing this person? And this might look different. So this might not always be the contact or the lead owner. So in our case, all of our contacts and accounts are owned by our AEs, but our AEs are not in charge of outbound prospecting. So UserGems normally without an open op would go to our ADR team. And we have a field there called ADR owner. So our DRI for UserGems that join a new account that doesn't have an open op is the ADR. Whereas if someone joins a customer account, our customer accounts are also still owned by our AEs. However, we don't want our AEs going and trying to sell existing customers. And we actually don't want them to be alerted if someone moves into a customer account because they maybe don't necessarily need that information. The person who needs that information is the customer success manager. So that would be the DRI on those. So that's why it's really important to differentiate like who is responsible for each type of gem. And it will start to play a big part in these like automations and workflows as you start to get really advanced with the UserGems project. I think this was it on my spiel before we go through and actually show how this works. So I will take over the share screen and make sure that we one second. All right. Amber, can you just let me know like if you can see everything here? Because I'm just trying to share the dashboard.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. All right. So the way I got in here, if you're not familiar with your dashboard, is by logging into UserGems and then navigating over to this left-hand rail and job changes. So the two sections we're going to be looking at today is job changes and automations. And the first thing we're going to be talking about is those filters. So we have some pre-built filters that you can use to get started that capture a lot of different types of job change scenarios. So if you see the select saved filters, you can see we have things like new business join target account, deal acceleration, so someone joining an open op account, or expansion. And you also have some default filters here. So a lot of these default filters cover a lot of the automations that you'll need. So past customer joined a new account, or past customer joined a new account a long time ago. Like those might have a different sequence. You can see we have some non-persona matches. So that's why it's really important to differentiate between persona and non-persona. And then you can see some joined open op as well. So the way you can create new filters, normally the way I would do it is by picking one to work from. So like, let's say we want to start thinking through our most important job change leads, which is probably a past buyer joins a target account. So we can start with the closed one op joins target account. And we can see here, we can start messing on the left-hand side with additional filters. I'm actually going to pick this one. Cool. So you can see here, like the left-hand rail will change to match this filter. You can see all the filters here. Something to note here is that you can come in here and if you make any changes and save it, you can add another filter. So you can always build more. Like let's say you wanted to only go through high priority accounts. High priority is defined as matches ICP. or joined an open op account in this case. And by default, we have this set to current email is not empty. This is if you want to add this to a sequence, just to make sure that they don't fail. So by default, 80% of UserGems job changes will have email. But if we cannot find the email, we don't send it. So in order to get rid of that margin of UserGems that don't have email, you'll see this is always is not empty, but you're able to take this away just by pressing the X if you want to see everybody. If you want to get really specific about the date that we have picked up on the job change or the date that they joined the company, like if you wanted to say, I only want to see people within the last 3 months be added to the sequence or be notified, you can make that change here. And then you can also start picking up on the different types here. So if you wanted to see all of your closed won champions and users, and you want them in one cohort, and then you want to build a different filter for just open op and maybe close lost for a different automation, you're able to do that here. And you can see everyone starts to change, and you can see like how many people would end up in this type of an automation. As you go down, you can start to get really granular about like where they went to, and then if they've started their job in the last 6 months. And then if you wanted to add anything that's not on this left-hand rail, you would just add a new filter. So we're able to pull in anything on the UserGems object. If you wanted to add like an additional field that you have in your Salesforce that you don't see here, we can do that. You just need to ask your CSM and we can add another field here for you. So something that might come into there is like if you have a really specific segment somewhere on your like accounts or your contacts and you want to take that into account when you're adding people into sequences, or you have like product usage data that you want to be factoring into these filters, we can add that. You just need to ask your CSM and then you can start using that in these filters. So you have pre-built filters, you can create your own filters. In order to then associate some type of an automation with them, you can do so within the automations tab. So in here, you can add an automation, and the two that we're going to go through today are add a sequence and send notification. Reassign and update fields are not necessarily used too often, but if you need to use UserGems to reassign or update fields in Salesforce, you can do that. This is actually only supported with Salesforce, so HubSpot is coming soon, but right now these are available in Salesforce only. So to add to a sequence, I normally like to start with select the filter first before I name it, so I can name them very similarly. So we were talking about past buyers joining target accounts. So anytime someone enters that filter we built, whatever we add this automation is going to happen. So I normally just name this the same thing, asking someone off contact, join target account, just to make sure that we can see them all. Select a sequence to add them to. If you look here, you'll be able to pick the sequence. So we have a ton in this demo environment. So pass, close one, op, contact, join, start account. You want to kind of think through the naming. So these are the pre-built UserGems sequence names. So if you were to send them from here into your outreach or your sales loft, they'll be named like this. But if you create your own sequences that you want these to be added to, consider the naming and make them really easily identifiable. If you wanted to start using this, that's just a quick plug, especially if you have a ton of sequences like you saw that we just did. Next, you'll want to see who is this going to be sequenced by, and this is going to be really specific to your org. So like I mentioned before, our AEs own all of our records, but they are not responsible for outreach on someone who joined an account without an opportunity. That's our ADR team. So we'll want to make sure that we are selecting a user field here and making sure that our ADR owner is the sequencer of anyone who joins a target account. This pulls from any field in your Salesforce, so like any ownership field, so you can get really specific with this. You can also do it by a specific user, so like if you have one group of people for different verticals and you want to sequence it as one specific rep, you would just type in the user here, and then we would always add it as that user. What I will say here is that these users, if you're adding them to a sequence, they need to have a license in Outreach or SalesLoft. So if they do not have an active license, then these will fail. So always just make sure that whoever you're sequencing on, they're active in SalesLoft or Outreach. So like, for example, our CS team does not have Outreach licenses. So like if I wanted to set up some type of customer play, I wouldn't be able to do that here because they don't have a license. Next, we'll go through automate or notifications. It'll actually carry over. So like if I'm working on the same thing and I want to do multiple automations for one filter, you can just go over to notification. You can see I'm still on the same filter and I'm still working on anyone who joins this field. So someone who was a buyer and then moved to target account. Here's where it gets a little bit tricky. So we can do email and Slack. They're both supported in the same automation page. The old contact would be if you were doing some type of churn prevention play. So like, let's say you wanted to alert a customer success manager that somebody left. This would be a really good way to alert them. So by telling the DRI of the old contact that somebody left. But for this one, we are going to want to do this as the new DRI because it's our ADR. And this is why it's really important to have these DRIs set up, because if you noticed in the ad sequence, you can do this as like a specific user or a user field. In notifications, you do not have that functionality. So you need to have a DRI here. So someone needs to be responsible to get these Slack notifications. We also have an option to send it to a channel. So if you wanted to have like your entire ADR team in one specific channel so that they can see everyone moving around, you can send it to like a channel for your whole team, or you can send it directly to whoever's responsible. And the way that we like to structure these is by pulling in custom fields from Salesforce. So something that you can say here is you have a new gem, and then you can start pulling in fields from Salesforce by using the $sign. So you can say, here's all of their information. Here's their new email. And their LinkedIn. And then you can say something like, was a past user at past company and is now their current title at the current company. And then you can give them some type of action item. So in this case, they were already added to this sequence, but maybe it's a manual first step. So you want to say, like, please check the UserGem sequence for high prio job changes and complete the first step. So I want to make sure that there's like, they're not getting a notification that tells them to do nothing. You're like, hey, you have this notification, here's the info. And like, here's now what you need to do with this information. So making something actionable at the end is normally pretty helpful. The Slack notification recipient does not need a UserGems license. No, so UserGems does not have like seats. We're not seat based. So as long as this person has a Slack license, we can send it to them. And as long as they are the DRI associated with the UserGems. So they don't need like a license, but they do need to be the DRI here, which you can define in your settings in this same dashboard. So like if you were to go here on the left-hand side and go to settings, I don't know if you can see my mouse here, you can set up your DRIs in there. One more caveat about the Slack channel. We always recommend having a Slack channel set up. And the reason being is if we cannot find that person in Slack, we will then by default just send it to the Slack channel. So a reason why we couldn't find someone in Slack could be that they like aren't associated with that record correctly. So like in Salesforce, we can't then like look at Slack and find that user. Or they might be like inactive in Salesforce. So something that I've seen happen is like if someone goes on maternity leave for a long period of time and in Salesforce they're still the owner, but they're somehow like not active for like whatever period of time, it might actually just get sent to the catch-all channel. So that's why we really recommend having a catch-all channel, regardless if you send anything there on purpose or not. All right. We have 2 minutes left. I'll actually just keep sharing my screen in case anyone has any questions specifically about setting up filters or setting up automations. I'm happy to take them now in the Q&A. But otherwise, the best way to start getting in here is by logging in and trying to navigate through this yourself. Bring it up on your next call with your customer success manager. See, you know, bring them your wildest dreams of like what types of automations you'd like to see from UserGems and see if they can help you set it up using these filters and automations. Get really creative with it. So we always recommend doing both a like add to sequence and notification, just making sure that someone knows that there's something happening. However, the more automated that you can get this program, the better. We automate this at UserGems end to end, from creation to enrollment to the first step is totally automated. So if you don't want to go that crazy, you don't have to, but at least getting it into the sequence is definitely a great first step. Yeah, and drop us in some suggestions of what you want to see come from Dig Deeper. Next month, again, is going to be new hires and promotions and how we operationalize that end to end. And that's, again, fun fact, fully automated. So we'll share what we do there. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.